morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rajat Mukherjee, and as Director General of Broadband India Forum, it is my privilege to welcome you all to this, the fourth and final session of our learning series post the launch of the Broadband India Forum's Connectivity Accelerator program. The program is built around four sub-themes, the first of which was a kickoff session. The second was on business models. The third session was on technology, and this, the final session, we will examine issues around investment. I would encourage every one of you to join us and to get the best out of this accelerated program. A little bit of background: Broadband India Forum is a policy think tank dedicated to the spread of broadband for all in a technology-neutral manner. We believe that India, which is a vast country with a vibrant geological ecosystem, as well as population, requires many technologies to reach and out to each and every individual citizen. With that in mind, BIF was at the forefront of the WANI solution, which was developed and showcased to the TRAI back in 2016. Field tests and trials culminated in a recommendation to the DOT, and finally, the PM WANI was announced. It is only natural then that we should put in place this accelerator program to seed the marketplace with this very eminent technological capability that will reach out to each and every citizen of the country. The program is meant to be for the benefit of those innovators and entrepreneurs looking to take up implementation and rendering of these PM WANI services. PM WANI as a concept, as a service, and as a facilitator for extending the broadband services to all will be covered extensively in these sessions, and the speakers coming after me will be expanding further to provide greater detail of the specific topic of that session, which today is investment. We are very pleased to have the support of the Department of Telecommunications, and we extend our thanks to the respected Secretary for the special trust that he has provided, and the entire DOT team for their support. It is a privilege to have had the presence of senior members to support this Connectivity Accelerator program in each and every one of the sessions. We would also like to acknowledge the support of Meta in this outreach and the very hard work put in by Headstart in organizing this series. Finally, the role of the President of the Broadband India Forum, the redoubtable T. Ramachandran, cannot be underestimated. He is responsible for the continued drive to realize this vision of leaving no citizen behind. I invite the entrepreneurs to visit the Connectivity Accelerator website and register for the program. Before I hand over to the moderator, I would invite my colleague Sandeep Kathuria to share a few specific points about PM WANI and what it means to everyone. Over to you, Sandeep.
Thank you, Rajat, and good morning, everyone. The topic for me today is PM WANI Ventures, Challenges, Solutions, and Future. The role of Wi-Fi in internet connectivity is very well acknowledged. Opening of Wi-Fi for public under PM WANI is a great policy decision, and I'm fully convinced that this will open new business avenues and opportunities for all the players. In late 80s and 90s, government allowed PCOs for public telephony, which addressed teledensity issue and reduced cost of calls substantively. Now, when internet and data is the lifeline, opening of data communications for public through Public Data Office, that is PDOs, is a welcome step. Under PM WANI, a smartphone user can avail seamless Wi-Fi with good speeds. However, the circumstances are different in case of PDO compared to a PCO. We see that there are some challenges in proliferation of PM WANI Wi-Fi. These have been discussed in various forums, but for today's topic, I will group them into two broad sections. Firstly, how to make PM WANI attractive for smartphone user who already has access to data network on his mobile. That's the first thing. And second one is how a shopkeeper can increase his earnings and business through PM1E, so that it is attractive for him or her to become or convert to PDO. Today, there are many private Wi-Fi installed in shops, especially in towns and cities. These can be converted to public Wi-Fi, provided the underlying benefit is seen by the business. In my view, a PM1E creates business possibilities in addition to providing Wi-Fi access. In fact, with some innovation, the possibilities for growing business through this tool are tremendous for all stakeholders. I will try to cover some broad possible thoughts on one of the many solutions in next 3-4 minutes with the help of few slides. I will show the slides. So like I discussed that we have seen, PCO world also, but then we have seen that people have started deploying public Wi-Fi. But the purpose of this whole presentation is that how we can create opportunity for retailers to grow their business, and how can we open this black box for the business. So if we talk about connectivity as the driver, then we are looking at the thing from a very, very narrow angle that way. Today, there is a smartphone user who can only avail the PM1E, Wi-Fi. And for him, the basically driver is that he may need some connectivity through Wi-Fi at some point of time, and for which he will be paying. Therefore, today, basically, it is the need of smartphone user only which is driving the public Wi-Fi. There is, very little being done from the point of view of shopkeeper, or very little being done by the, say, app provider or a PDOA to make it attractive to a consumer to go for PM1E. What I want to say is that instead of seeing it from a driver of connectivity, we should look at that who are the drivers for the business in PM1E. What I want to say here is that when a person is getting PM1E on his phone, it is not only the Wi-Fi is getting, he's also getting an app through which he is accessing PM1E Wi-Fi hotspot. Now, this app is a very, very important tool. And if we dig deeper into this, there is a shopkeeper whose name is on the app. So whenever one connects to PM1E, one will see, say, XYZ, a Kirana store or pawn shop or whatever. Now, already there is some kind of branding being given on the homepage of the PM1E app to the store. Now, what more can be given to the store so that he gets more business out of this? And what more can be given to the user so that he gets attracted to the app? He will get attracted to the app only when he gets some offers or some mileage from the app in which he's doing. So, for example, if there is a mechanism that facility is given to the shopkeeper that he can give his offers, discounts to the people who are nearby to the shops, then the people who are in the vicinity of shops will be attracted more and more to latch on to the app and access the app, both from point of view of connectivity as well as from the point of view of getting more and more offers. That will create more and more, competition in the market. And if 3 or 4 or 5 people in the market or shops in the market go on to PM1E for this purpose, that will create an ecosystem in the market. Slowly, it will create an ecosystem all across, and it will result in the growth of not only PM1E, but also a better experience for the shopkeepers, more business for them, and much better experience for the consumers who are in that market. The examples can be manifold. One example I've given to you. One can expand it into a case where the shopkeeper's page will be on the app for all times, whether the consumer is in that area or not. So tomorrow, if the consumer wants to buy something from that shop, then from anywhere he can access the PM1E app, look at the shop page and place an order from there. So it is more like a different experience being given by a PM1E app, which will create business for the shopkeeper, and which will also make consumers more and more latched onto it. So basically, from making payment and searching for Wi-Fi, it will be an experience where the consumer will really want that, is that app being sold by or is available, or the Wi-Fi is there on the app in the market or not. If it is there, then he will like to go there and avail the offers and whatever is being offered by the shopkeeper. So in a nutshell, there will be more engagement at the digital level, where the app providers and PDOs will play the key role. So, like I said, the benefits to the retail from PM1 are as follows. Instead of, or in addition to the connectivity, there will be connection with the potential customers. There will be increased customer engagement, real-time interactions, transactions over the app. One can list offers. There can be ads displayed, and it can be, umpteen kind of innovations that the business can bring in. I'm not going to that, but app PDOs can offer different kind of bouquets of services. Rather than plain connectivity, they will be offering various marketing features in the app. So it is a very good business case for the app providers or for the PDOs to make additions in the app of these kind of features, which will really, proliferate the Wi-Fi usage over public Wi-Fi. And PM1 will not only become a tool for connectivity, it will become a tool for proximity marketing, and it will go beyond connectivity for the consumer. This slide again summarizes the overall benefits for various stakeholders. For consumers, the access to services, products will be there. They will avail spot offers, not only for Wi-Fi, but for the products too. There will be more engagement at the digital level. Consumer need not go into the shop. At the app level itself, from the nearby area, he will be able to have visibility about the offerings, and there will be more transparency to the consumers since it will be on the app medium. For the shop and retail, it will be a business not only confined to connectivity, it will be a connectivity plus kind of a thing. There will be brand display on the main page. There will be option for the shopkeeper to avail a dedicated page, and he will get into more kind of a location-based marketing and get more footfalls and conversions. Similarly, for the app providers, I think, and for PDOs, the key thing will be that they can, if they provide these features, they can sell monthly packs for these features and get more and more PDOs onboarded. And similarly, when more PDOs are there, there will be more users. So it is from consumer side as well as from the shop side, there will be more and more demand. And there is an opportunity to create an ecosystem which will add real value to the PDOs and to the app providers here. For the TSPs, ISPs also, there's a good, there's a great, opportunity here. They will sell more and more connections. Today, if shops are not availing Wi-Fi connections for their own business, they will avail the Wi-Fi connections. So there is a medium of monetization available. There is a big opportunity for business growth if the app is duly enabled with right features. So at the end, I would like to say that with this kind of a digital engagement, which is very much possible under the PM1, there is a big opportunity available, and one should look beyond connectivity here, and that will really meet the desired results of the government of India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. Thank you, Rajat ji, and very warm welcome to everybody. That was quite insightful, and so excited to be sharing the dais with revolutionaries like yourselves. So I would probably just move into the next session, which is basically a panel conversation, a panel discussion on investments in the internet connectivity space. So while we've been talking about BIF and PM1, the other thing that's happening, and which is what this program also is all about, is some very interesting startups doing super interesting work in this space. And so when we talk about startups, of course, there are very innovative entrepreneurs coming up with very interesting ideas, game-changing ideas, and ideas that probably dreamers can think of. But then again, whilst ideas are important and the team to execute is also very important. One key thing that sort of can make or break the success of a startup is the level of investment that is able to achieve and its financial stability, right? And which is where investors come in, who are able to take that risk, take that initial risk of venture risk, and sort of work with the startups, help them scale up, help them reach various other, say, levels, and sort of participate in the impact that they're creating. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists today on this discussion. So, first and foremost, we have Mr. Suryaprakash Konanuru from Ideaspring Capital, who is also fondly called Mr. Suri. So, I'm going to be addressing him as Mr. Suri for the entire duration of this particular discussion. I'm going to have to read his accolades because there are so many of those. So he is basically a serial entrepreneur and technologist. He's been part of the Indian startup ecosystem for about 20 years now, and has played various roles of entrepreneur, mentor, advisor, investor, and of course, most importantly, a friend to founders alike. Presently, he's a CTO at Ideaspring Capital, a venture fund which is investing in early stage enterprises, product innovation startups. Prior to this, he was also sort of working with Wipro Infotech R&D close to a decade. And he's known to be one of those people who is sort of like a visionary and can spot trends quite early, which is sort of evident in the fact that he founded his first startup, Alopa Networks, in 1999, when words like startup and self-employment were, say, nightmarish, so to say the least. So far, he's co-founded 3 startups, including Alopa, BioWest Technologies, and FunTooth, and across domains such as networking, healthcare, education, along with 2 exits as well. And if this was not enough, he is also a running enthusiast. He loves travel and photography in his free time. So thank you so much, Suri sir, for joining us. Looking forward to this discussion with you.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Next up, we have Anirudh Siddharth from Inflection Point Ventures, and Anirudh is also a dear friend. So Anirudh is a chartered accountant, presently a part of IPV, which is an early stage angel investing platform. Most of you might have already known about IPV from before. He is predominantly involved in investment evaluations across various sectors, and more importantly, he works very closely with founders at an operational level to sort of help out with their day-to-day, say, strategies, any troubleshooting. So he's a go-to guy if you want to know how to scale a startup, right? So that's basically what he's been doing. Prior to this, he also was working in another investment asset management company and was with Ernst & Young in the management consulting space. He's worked across social impact, consumer tech, ed tech, and more relevantly, he has been recently researching on the internet connectivity space post announcements around PM1E, which Mr. Sandeep took us through as well. So thanks, Anirudh, as well for joining us.
Thanks, Pranay, for the introduction. Thanks. Hi, everyone.
Thank you. And we have one more person on the panel with us, very distinguished person from 100x VC, which is again the founder's friend. So Mr. Vatsal Kanakiya, who is a CTO and principal at 100x VC, is also joining us. He is a serial investor, especially proficient in vetting ventures and backing them at a very early stage. His portfolio is a very varied one with like space tech, food tech, deep tech, with the common term being tech across those, and has various investments under his belt. He spent the majority of his professional career in the investment domain. Apart from this, he's of course a tech wizard, and he also teaches kids in programming. So thank you so much, Vatsal, for joining us. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Pranay, and wonderful being here along with Surya and Anirudh.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise. Great. So probably we'll kick off the panel discussion by a few generic questions around PM1E, around the way that we as investors. So to give you all a quick introduction about myself as well. So I am an associate. I work with Low Capital in the impact investing space, and I've been there for some time now. So going into just the first question. So internet is sort of has been the largest phenomenon of the 21st century. Web 2.0 is what it's been dubbed as, and now we are sort of reaching Web 3.0 as well. Whilst there seems to be a massive shift taking place because of tech, the impact that tech can create, the way that internet per se has proliferated the ability to create impact. We are still in a position where a lot of people in India are not enjoying this privilege, right? But of course, thanks to initiatives like PM Vani, we're seeing the environment of startups to rapidly proliferate internet connectivity. So, of course, when startups are involved, we could definitely witness many out-of-the-box solutions for tackling various challenges in this domain. So, probably we can go one by one, but the question that I'm trying to broadly ask here is how do you view this as investors, and do you think that startups are indeed a much needed addition to spread the benefits of the internet, and why do you think so? So basically, your view on how this is sort of mapping out, and where do you see the role of startup comes into play? So probably Suri sir, if you can go first, and followed by Anirudh and then Vatsal. So.
Yeah, actually, let me start with see the startup ecosystem, right? Like actually, what does it bring is basically innovation. Basically, that's what it brings, right? To people think of out of the box solutions, and actually like it actually helps in actually providing more employment, and also see many times what happens is that startups alone cannot do it, and at the same time the big enterprises also cannot do it alone. Okay, that's where actually that mix actually is what brings that innovation into a sector. I have seen this startup ecosystem from '99, as you said. Like there was no ecosystem at that time, and incidentally, like my first startup was enabling broadband provisioning, but it for the US and the Europe market. Okay. So like people used to take so much time to provision things, we automated everything. So that's what we brought in. Basically, that's a kind of future thinking, right? That's what actually the startups bring, and they're not afraid of trying out new things, right? So that's actually what brings that innovation and future thinking, along with good support from say government and the ecosystem. They all can blossom. Okay, so I'm really happy to see that the government of India and through the PM Vani is helping proliferating these solutions. As Sandeepji mentioned, like basically it's not just the connectivity, but what do you give on top of connectivity? Like some of the things actually, like as he was mentioning, I have seen a lot of startups which actually try to bring local businesses online. Okay, what they can be brought on PM Money, right? Because it helps everybody, and it also actually kind of helps in monetizing and all those things. Finally, monetization is very important, right? In anything. So yeah, so those are some of the things actually like which I think like okay will help not only the startups but also getting connectivity and more to actually the people who need it.
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. In fact, that's probably why I love the word ecosystem, because essentially the word ecosystem means that it is an ecologically functioning system which is self-sufficient. So, and for it to be self-sufficient, it's got to be financially stable and monetizable as well. So, point taken. Thank you so much for that, Suri. So, Anirudh, you want to go next?
Sure, Pranay. I think Mr. Suri has absolutely addressed the ecosystem part, so I don't want to repeat the same thing. So maybe what I would take up here is basically I would like to cover a small snapshot of the landscape. So how we saw internet 15 years back, 10 years back, 5 years back, and now how we are seeing, right? It started with broadband and dial-up, then it moved to laser, it moved to fiber net, and then now it's laser and other wireless mediums, right? So I mean, again, two techies are here, so I'm not really well versed to talk about more technical jargons. But yeah, to say, I mean, again, it has become a necessity right now, more than convenience, and alternate source previously. People used to have internet, and people now have to have internet. So that's the change that has happened, right, over the period. And I believe that government also partnering, because it's again in the day it's creating a social infrastructure right across the country. And when we are talking about scale and not really catering to a particular target segment, we are catering to the people at large, right, a public at large. So I think a good collaboration of government initiatives or government partnerships in terms of creating awareness and creating scalability and infrastructure, along with the technology and the fresh set of mindsets that a different perspective that the ecosystem people bring in private and public partnerships where it not necessarily has to happen only at large infrastructure scale level, like building a bridge or like doing any other infrastructure activity, but at even technological level, and also interpreting this very niche area, new area, which is relatively getting traction recently. So I think this would really add a lot of value, and I think there would be a larger impact because of this. That's my take on this.
Thanks so much, Anirudh. I think that's a very well summarized overview of where we stand, and totally echo with those thoughts as well. Thank you. Vatsal, you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think Suri and Anirudh almost covered a lot. The way I would put it is, why I think startups would be important. And yes, I do believe they're very important to this mission. Is every platform always needs a killer use case, right? Even if you have PM1 out there, unless there's a killer reason to be using it, right? That's not going to happen. Why are people getting on Geo and the internet? Because people want to be on WhatsApp, right? So ideally, that innovation will always come from startups, right? Those killer use cases will only come if there are private enterprises building something out of the box, building something that consumers really want desperately, and they can access only by being part of this platform, right? And that will drive the adoption of PM money, drive people to really accept this model of communication and connectivity. And so that's, I mean, my brief kind of reason for why I believe startups are very critical for any platform, whether this connectivity platform or otherwise, right? Because the killer use case always comes from private companies. And I mean, UPI, right? Again, UPI, the killer use case came with BharatPay, with PhonePe. Those companies really built it up, right? We had BMAP for much longer than before them, but people did not adopt until BharatPay and PhonePe came along, right? So, that's kind of my two thoughts on it.
No, I love that point as well. And in fact, that's something I echo with as well, right? Because we've now reached a space, or at least over the last few years, more recently, we see that the government is building excellent infrastructure, right? Thanks for mentioning UPI. It's a great example. But to add to it, the account aggregator and that whole India stack, right? And the way that startups have used this particular platform to build such interesting solutions, it's something that we look at day after day. I mean, as investors, we evaluate startups on a daily basis. And the kind of solutions people are building on it is insane. Like these are, and I often say, the problems that are worth solving are those which people didn't even know they had. So, so that's basically what's happening, right? So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think, and I also feel that one of the reasons why people in the startup space in the private sector are able to take those risks is because it requires you to take a certain risk, right? You don't know if it's going to work or not. You don't know if someone's going to like the solution or not, if it's going to sail through or not, which is where the risk-taking appetite comes in, and which is where private and startups come in. Great. So with that, I'll move on to the next question. That is very interesting. I mean, I can go on and on, but I think we should go on with the rest of the questions as well. So overall, the idea of the next question is to understand, of course, as an investor, we do support startups with, say, capital, right? That is one of the primary requirements. That's one of the primary things. But in addition to capital, do you see other ways that investors can engage with startups to support them? Any of you can feel free to go if you have any thoughts on it. Startups in this internet connectivity space more so.
Yeah, maybe I'll take that actually, because we have made some investments and we also have come with a networking background. So that kind of helps, right? Basically, see, coming to investment, right? See, in internet connectivity or any infrastructure, network connectivity kind of startups, right? So it's very technical subject. If you really see, like it involves a lot of technology, right? Like it's not like I'm not belittling any apps or anything, but like it's not very easy for everybody to do that, right? And that's one of the reasons why investments are also a bit tough, because investors also have to understand, right? If it's not just money, right? How do you actually work with them? How do you empathize with them? Because it's a very different business, and it's a different technology, different business. It's a very different ecosystem also, in the way that and you have only a finite set of, say, telecom providers or the internet service providers, things like that, right? So and understanding this is very, very key to investing, and also like making them successful, right? So that's where actually I see that investments in deep tech and all are happening, but this is going to take time. Meaning, like you don't see as much growth as you see in the other sectors, right? In the sense that there are a lot of tough things to handle in this sector. That's why actually, like, and having government support these things becomes very important, right? Because government can solve some of these problems easily by actually helping all these startups and adopting these startups. Yeah, actually, from investors' point of view, right? It's another business. So that's how one should, investors look at it, right? So so monetization plans, like how are you going to actually like monetize your solution? That becomes very key. That's what I would say to startups, like whether they are networking or other sectors. And in networking, all the more they should have the technology background, right? So that's also becomes important. So there is going to be growth because infrastructure is being built, and there will be more applications, because before broadband there were very few applications. After broadband there are so many new applications, and that there's going to be more and more. Okay, like people want to do more and more on the internet with and also with the metaverse coming in, and people want to be on the internet only, looks like. So there will be more need for not only good connectivity but also like quality of service becomes very important. So a lot of things actually to do.
Right. Of course, I sort of again agree with that. And what I also feel is that, whilst investing essentially by definition is giving capital to the startup to sort of, let's say, scale, right? Uh, I think that's just one small part of it. It's one step. Essentially, the value add that an investor brings in terms of, let's say, helping with the strategy, helping with hiring. There are multiple sort of ways and means in which investors work together with startups to sort of help them grow. And I'm sure the panelists would attest to that as well. Anirudh, do you want to add anything on that, since you've been working very closely with startups? So if you can give an example.
Sure, Pranay. So, I mean, ultimately, the thing is that one part of it, as Mr. Surya also mentioned, right? So, one is to drive valuations or to drive monetize it out of the investment that you make, that you also help them in strategizing, right? The other one is also with respect to growing them and also nourishing them with proper guidance, right? Because, see, ultimately, you can't expect a person to have all the skill sets, right? So, one person might be good at marketing, he might be requiring a technical support, or one person might be having a good at tech, he might be lacking a sales part or a product part. So I think that's where we as an investor community, I think we bring in value by helping them in network and also growing them, right? So ultimately, it's not only the valuation game that we play, but to consolidate, to create a larger impact, I think we'll have to do it, is what I feel.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that. Vatsal, you want to add anything on that?
Sure. As investors, I think in the end, the key question we ask is this venture backable or not, right? Every startup has to be venture backable in the end. We don't invest for linear returns. We don't invest for 5% IRR. We invest for the multi-baggers, right? We invest for something that makes 100 million out of our $1 million. That's the story we're looking for. So for founders who are in the discussion today, the formula, you have to remember, if f of x equals to e raised to x. F of x is the value of the startup, x is the money infused. So the value of the startup has to be an exponential function of the money infused into the startup, right? So Abhi, let's divide connectivity into two types of businesses, right? One is the infrastructure play, right, which is the hardware, the base layer. And then the other is the platform applications play, right, kind of thing. So on the infrastructure front, it's going to be very, very tough for you to raise from investors unless it is a very differentiated infrastructure, right, where you have IP, you're 10 years ahead of all competition, and there is a cycle of continuous innovation, continuous research. You're in that R&D game where you're always consistently 10 years ahead. Is going to be very tough to raise because investors are going to be like, okay, this is like a funnel where my money is just going to get lost. Value creation is going to be low. It's going to be commoditized soon. And it's just going to be hard to scale it across the board, right? Whereas on the software front, largely it'll be easier to scale, right? Because it's software, it's easier to replicate, there are network effects, there's a lot more you can build, right? But so there'll be a better chance for you to raise if you're on that front of the connectivity spectrum. But again, wahan pe bhi, the story has to be ke how do we offer a better experience to the end consumer, right? So the idea is not about saying, okay, I have the best technology, but translating that technology into business use cases and translating that into a better experience for the end consumer. Because in the end, the whole idea is that retail shops, that the government wants to provide the best connectivity experience to the consumer. So they will pay you only if you're the best person providing that experience, right? And that's where you will also win, because consumers will want to use you. Consumers will use PhonePe or Paytm or Google Pay because they like that experience over the other apps, or there are some network effects that make that experience better, right? So you have to think along those lines. So those are my kind of two, sense on how investors will be thinking about this space.
No, thank you so much. That's super insightful. And in fact, the next question that I was coming to was probably asking you guys the top 3 things that you would look for when you are looking to invest or when you're evaluating a startup, right? And I think one very important thing which Vatsal pointed out was the business use case. Of course, there is technology, there is this, there is that, but how are you really using it to give a meaningful solution to the customer? Are you having the customer on the top of your head and building something for that customer so that customer will be willing to sort of pay for it? So I think that's one important point. Probably a couple of other points on what you would look for in a startup, Suri sir, when you evaluate, considering you've made some very interesting investments as well in the space. It would be nice to hear how did you go about evaluating a couple of things that the founders who are with us today should look out for.
See, for early stage funds like us, right? Like the team becomes the topmost, because that's what you have and that's what you want to be consistent. Everybody says this, but that's what it is. Because finally, like, you may not even have the product, or you may just have an MVP, right? Or you may just have an idea. We have done that kind of investment also, right? And then comes the market. Like, are you solving a good problem in a big market? That becomes very important, because in Ideaspring, we also look at what is the differentiation people have. Like, we are like differentiate or die kind of approach we take. So those are some of the top things that come to my mind. Yeah.
Interesting. Anirudh?
So, I mean, ultimately, I think the answers would be the same, but the reordering might be the slightly different. So, again,
yeah,
I mean,
the idea is to get different perspectives, and the idea is to see how is each person looking at the same thing differently, right? And that's what's like super interesting. So.
Perfectly. So, I mean, as Suri also told that we are into the early stage funding, right? So, I mean, basically, it's very different from a structured PE where you have good historicals or good backing as to what the company is about, right? So here you are, what is visible is only people, right? So apart from that, there won't be any numbers, or even though you plot Excel, so it's just a number game that you play around. So however you want, you can do it. So, I mean, top 3 things that I would look for is basically the market size, what market are they betting? Because ultimately there might be, if the market size is relatively small, even though how good the product is, if it's not scalable, it's not investable, right? It might solve a problem. I'm not denying it, but it's not investable. Second one is moat. So moat is again the competitive advantage. So as against the players in the market, how difficult it is for other players to enter or basically to scale. So what differentiation that you bring, I think that is the second thing I would look. And third is the right, I mean, team obviously. So it will be the attitude of the founders and the teams. So again, execution capabilities. So this would be predominantly, again, we don't expect them to know everything, but at least if their attitude towards, if they are passionate about doing it. So these are the things that I would look. I mean, pretty much I think all the investors look, but happy to hear Vatsal also.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Vatsal, please go ahead. If you have any.
I think Anirudh and Suri covered a lot of it, and most investors give the same answer. Just to talk a bit quickly, right? So on how to show that we're the right team, I think about it as 3 E's of pedigree, right? Pedigree has 3 E's. One is education. I've studied in the same space. One is experimentation. I've spent 2 years just trying to tinker around and figure shit out in this space. And third is experience, right? I've worked in this same space for last 4 or 5 years, right? These 3 E's, ideally 2 out of 3 would be great, right? And on the front of if this is more along the, if you're on the software side of the connectivity business, right? Then it's not as important for you to have this background, because software is something which you can learn and grow on generally a lot better, right? But then ideally you want to show that growth mindset, right? That ability to rapidly learn, to rapidly absorb information and rapidly grow, right? Finding solutions, finding answers, invest in the feedback. I'm not able to find a moat. You spend 2 days, you go heads down and say, okay, this is how by network effects or by this better software, or this is how I can improve the experience. You keep improving and thinking about that, right? On the hardware front, pedigree would be more important. On the software front, I would say that ability to really absorb information, learn and grow would be very critical.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. And in fact, I'll probably take a minute to add some of my views on the team aspect as well, right? Because that's, again, like Suri sir said, that's one of the most important factors at an early stage. Because see, essentially what happens is when you're investing at an early stage, you invest in a certain idea, but more likely than not, the idea will pivot multiple times, right? And it is a team that's going to sustain those pivots. So what sort of we also look for is certain software aspects, right? The integrity of the founders, their ability to lead, their ability to sort of even raise funds, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're going to take this to a certain level, you're going to keep having to go to market and raise funds at multiple points of time. So these are 3-4 things that we also look for. So yeah, so moving into sort of another important aspect was, so Ani, you were talking about the market bit, right? So where do you see the internet connectivity market going in the next, say, 5 odd years? Because as of now, of course, we're in a position where the internet connectivity and the economy that is driven by the internet is a major, massive contributor to India's GDP. And of course, we've had success stories like Wi-Fi Dubai, 2E1, Astrom, Lavel Networks, which also is Suri's portfolio company. So broadly, where do you see the market heading in the next 5 odd years? And also, where do you see investments coming into the space? Like, do you think that the investments are going to continue to grow in this space? Do you see more Series B, Series D, or let's say late stage deals coming up in the next 5-10 years? Where do you see this going?
Okay, to answer your question, so again, I mean, to just answer more than the market size, right? Because I think everybody potentially knows the market size, and I mean, the number keeps on changing every time. So I think the key metrics, maybe I would rephrase it, that what people would be looking at is maybe how many users are a tower covering, if it's going to be based on a fiber net or broadband kind of things, or maybe what is the speed and what is that is covering, and what is the geospatial location that it's covering, right? So I think there are quite a lot of other metrics, I think, which Vatsal and Suri might be able to better comprehend and also add. So I think that would be one thing that that I think everybody would be looking out for who would be investing in the space. And second one is with respect to the kind of VC plays, right? So technically, I mean, how I see is, again, as Vatsal said, he broke into two things. One is the hardware part and one is the software part, right? And hardware part, again, it's core asset heavy model where I still feel that to some extent it's not a VC play, right? Because obviously you need something to demonstrate.
Yeah.
So to an extent, otherwise, I mean, there are certain exceptions where we do even, I mean, hardware part, but I'm saying predominantly hardware part is not really a VC play. So I think more like a software play, or where an integration platform or types of new ways of transmitting internet, all that would be, I think, would be a typical VC play. I think that would gain traction in the coming years.
Interesting. Yep. Thank you for that. So I have a couple of specific questions, based on the investments that you guys have made and things like that. So the first one would be for Suri sir. So like I just mentioned a couple of minutes back, you've invested in Lavel Networks, which has gone on to do quite well. So can you sort of give us some insights on, why did you invest in Lavel, in the sense that what is it about the venture that sort of, drew you towards it and built your conviction in the space as well as the venture? And what are some of the key learnings that you've had from that particular investment?
Okay. So main thing actually was that, okay, both Shamil and Karthik, founders of Lavel Networks, they came with decades of experience in companies like Cisco and Juniper Networks. Okay. That was one thing which actually they came with the domain expertise. Okay. And we strongly believe that to build networking software, you need that. Even though it's software, it's networking software needs domain expertise to build. Because you put even like people with experience, it will take like 18 months to build things like this. Like it's not easy. Like you can't build it in like 3 months and things like that, right? So that is one. So they had an initial solution, but like they didn't have customers. Okay, but we knew that. Okay, so how did we make a decision, right? Like basically, like we were seeing, and okay, we are still seeing, right, the adoption of internet or cloud by businesses. So that's growing, right? Everybody is adopting cloud, and once you adopt cloud, your applications also, like why are you adopting cloud? To move the applications to the cloud, correct? So you need to access those applications in a safe and also secure way, and also like quality of service should be good, because otherwise the businesses will get affected, right? So and one way of doing that in the olden days was MPLS and things like that, basically, which takes time to actually like connect and all those things to provide like good quality of service and things like that. But the new solution for that actually is SD-WAN. software-defined WAN. Okay, so it's kind of in between like software and hardware, right? It's software WAN, but WAN used to be on hardware previously, but like software and on a commodity hardware. That's what they do, right? And what we saw was there are a lot of multi-branch businesses, right? You take retail, or you take banks, right? Or you take many of the even Swiggy is a multi. When you take all those end points, right? So there are a lot of multi-branch businesses which need to actually do business by connecting to the cloud. So that is where we knew that okay, with the adoption of cloud growing and in the enterprise, and they will need a solution to connect to the internet to do their business well. That was very, very important. So that was one of the things actually which made us like, okay, let's do this. Okay. And we also knew that, okay, there were solutions in the US and Europe, like outside India, but India, there were not many solutions. Basically, they have to build those solutions here, right? Like, so we knew that, okay, we can actually like take the Indian market. So we guided them, go after the Indian market. And today they are one of the leading SD-WAN vendors in India today. And that's how we took the call. Yeah, it's good founders. There's a need in the market for the same, and we knew that they were very technical, so we actually like got advisors for them, and also like the sales and marketing teams and all those things.
Nice.
So yeah,
that's super interesting. So that's a great segue for my next question for Vatsal, and probably then I'll come to Anirudh after that. So Vatsal, the question would be, see, when it comes to internet connectivity, which is a core technological solution offering, right, in a way, of course, there needs to be a very robust technology to be able to do this. So could you give 2 to 3 pointers on how you would assess the robustness of technology that the particular startup that you're evaluating is sort of applying?
You know, I would say Suri would be better to answer this question because he's already done it. To be very honest, I've not yet seen companies in the internet connectivity space.
Okay.
So I don't want to give any wrong answers.
No,
I have not
I
built a
can
thesis around how to evaluate it.
No problem.
That's please,
So
go ahead.
So we can take. I'll try to answer it. Okay, like to the best extent. See, some of these softwares have to run 24/7. Okay, so basically, like we have to ensure that, because that's just precisely like how robust is the software and how robust is the solution, right? That becomes very, very important because these are all business critical solutions. Okay,
right.
And actually, we also look at, does this solution come in the control plane or the data plane? Okay, so if it comes in the data plane, it becomes very tough for adoption because telcos will take them forever to actually like make sure it works because they cannot risk that kind of thing. Okay, so basically like data has to flow. Okay, whatever happens. Control plane, maybe okay, some quality of service will go down a bit here and there. You can manage or whatever. At least business continues, right? So those are some of the aspects which we have to see from how easy it is to adopt. So it's not just this product, right? It's actually like how easy, like where do they play in the entire segment of the solution, right? So that's one important we'll see. And also we kind of see a lot of early stage, maybe they wouldn't have thought through all these things, but how easy it is to deploy the solution, because that becomes very important, because it may not be always on the cloud, because you have to send a hardware to a Canara Bank branch, right? Something like that, to actually like get it installed, or to a retail store where there will be no IT person. If you really see, there's no IT person, right? So how do you actually make it so easy to deploy and management from a central place? So a lot of these things also one has to actually look at it from a technical point of view. Okay.
Absolutely,
and apart from all the business and all those things, that's always there.
That's okay.
That's what I would say. How easy, it's not just a product, but how easy it is to deploy, manage, and actually like all those aspects. The entire,
essentially scalability from a core technology point of view, right? Whether the technology itself is easily usable and scalable is something which is very important.
Yes, it becomes very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all these guys are any infrastructure kind of players. They are very critical to the businesses. They cannot go down.
Absolutely. Great. So just one probably last question to Anirudh, post which we'll just have some closing remarks from each of you. So Anirudh, again, this is more from a team perspective, right? So of course, like we were discussing in the beginning, we invest more in founders than we invest in the product per se, right? So could you sort of give our entrepreneurs on this session some tips on, how do they build a winning team, right? Of course, because see, one thing is being an ideal founder yourself, being the founder who probably is venture backable, being the founder who has the ability to take it, to various scales and levels. But the other important thing is to also build an equally strong team, right? Because the responsibility has to be shouldered by multiple people. So how would you sort of, or rather, what tips would you give to these founders so that they're able to build a good team?
Sure, Pranay. So, I mean, again, I'll take in two parts. So the first part is I'll tell you why I have actually personally changed my mind from looking at just numbers to founder or team, rather people, right?
Absolutely.
So see, I mean, I've been in consulting for like close to 4 or 5 years, where your muscle memory is trained that, okay, work on numbers, work on formulas, Excel, etc. Right? So there you believe
I fully relate to that.
Yeah, so there are backed up basis assumptions where you do it, and when I switched my career to investment side, right? So the first thing I realized my partners or rather a founder saying that please change your attitude with respect to how to look up things, because the thing is basically you can't drive everything by numbers, right? Ultimately, it is something that you do for your own satisfaction, maybe for convincing certain people, right? But apart from that, a real value add or at the space that we are right now, right? So that is very crucial when you actually interact or speak to people or look at the team or look at the profiles, right? Because people connect and trust on people are more gaining. I mean, it's very important, and also I think that is what is the core for any VC who would be looking at, right? Even though the numbers are bad, even though the attractions are low, even though you have some problems, so still you just go bet on the team, right? So that's the thing that I think most of the VCs look at as one of the important factors that they evaluate. Second one is what things to keep in mind for the founders. So again, experience is one thing. The attitude and how passionate about the business or the idea or execution is what matters to a couple of investors. I think most of the investors also. And second one is how well they are able to execute it. Again, as I rightly said in my earlier when I spoke earlier, that you don't need to possess all the skill sets, right? So, but you should be very conscious in identifying co-founders who have the same passion in the idea that you're working on, at the same time are able to complement your skill sets. So that is very important. So for example, you are good at strategy. So look, if you are building a tech product or a product oriented thing, right? So you must need, you just can't hire people in tech, right? You need to have someone who can take the ownership or take the accountability of it, right? Ultimately, and that comes up with being as a co-founder, and that identification is very critical, right? So and it differs from sector to sector, and this again talking about internet connectivity, right? So people might be very passionate about this space. For example, assume I don't have any tech background, but if I feel that okay, at every chota kirana shop there should be internet, so if that is my passion, but I should be able to identify a right co-founder who is very good at tech, because that is very good in implementing or putting things together to achieve somewhere, right? So I think that is a very basic thing I think that founders should keep in mind even before going and doing is investable, right before they waste their time or do something. They shouldn't be doing this and then realize after 2-3 years, okay, I didn't have a right founder, right? So that is one thing that I think along with idea execution or along with conceptualizing your idea, that should be your one of the go-to aspect that you should keep in mind.
Thanks. That was like packed with multiple insights. So thank you so much for that. In fact, I was just talking about this somebody, I think just yesterday, where what we discussed was that it's always good to have people who are very different from you in your team, but have the same common vision, right? And that's when you build complementary skill sets and you build like a very holistic team. So I think you sort of echoed that in many words, and I hope the founders here have taken note of it. So it'll be great for them. Thank you. I mean, I think we can go on about this subject endlessly, and probably, hopefully, we should at some point if we happen to catch up. But for the time being, I think this was super insightful, very helpful, and love to have this discussion with the three of you. I myself feel a lot more sort of enriched with information that I'm going to take back after this, and I hope even the founders do. Taha, would you like to add anything before we sort of wind down the panel discussion, or any questions from the audience that you might want to take up?
No, I think a lot of the questions that we also have in the audience being addressed over here. Of course, we do have a few questions which are more specific to PM Vani, which we'll address in the second half, where we have Satyam also coming in. But from the investors really understanding the fundamentals and the basics that when they should care about has been very valuably addressed over here. So thank you all the speakers for joining in.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
So we'll probably just take a few seconds, 10, 15 seconds, and then we'll move into the next session. All right. So Arun sir, are you here? You ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you.
Okay. Right. So in the second session, taking away from that super jam-packed session on investors, we're going to shift the gears a little bit, and we're going to have a presentation on the Broadband India Forum Connectivity Accelerator program, which basically, essentially, Broadband India Forum has launched this particular accelerator program in association with Headstart and in support with Meta. The purpose of this program, like Mr. Rajat also was saying earlier, is to enable entrepreneurs in the internet connectivity domain who are striving to provide affordable, reliable, and quality internet access to people of India. So to give a brief idea about the value of the program and what the program is trying to achieve, we have Mr. Arun Mukherjee with us. So privileged to be sharing the dais with you, Arun sir. So Arun sir is the Senior Director of Operations at Broadband India Forum, and you're going to be hearing directly from him. Of course, while he does not need introduction, I'm just going to attempt to sort of put in a few words. He is a leading authority in telecommunication sector in India, specializing in the complex policy and regulatory issues confronting telecom in India. He is a veteran when it comes to government relations, marketing, policy, and business development. Of course, he's taken up charge as the executive program coordinator of the BIF Connectivity Accelerator that we're running here. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Mr. Arun to sort of give us a presentation on the various benefits of this particular program and why is it sort of going to be useful for ventures in this particular internet connectivity domain to apply to this program and take the benefits of it. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Pranay. Thank you. Thanks for that introduction. I'm just uploading my presentation. One moment. Welcome to everybody and a very good morning. I don't need to introduce myself. Pranay has given me a very, I think, too much of an introduction. And it's my privilege and pleasure to be coordinating this program and to be addressing you today. I think our Director General, Mr. Rajat Mukherjee, has already addressed some of the points regarding the first slide, which is here on who's running, operating the BIF Connectivity Accelerator. But just to give a little bit of insight onto this, our next phase of the program, as he had mentioned, Department of Telecommunications, besides, we've got Meta as our patron member who is driving this and supporting us in a very big way for the program. And Headstart is the professional experts in this who are driving the program for us. They've got a lot of experience in the field of startups and with innovators and investments. And so they are doing this program with us. But Department of Telecommunications is going to be doing the next phase with us, which we would be very happy. And I think a lot of the PDOAs who have been spending a lot of time participating in the learning series up to now, we would be definitely involving them in our next phase. We have been having, this is just the start. This is a learning series, and we are looking forward to having registrations during the learning series. But please rest assured, I'm raising this point because there are some questions which are being raised about the participation of PDOAs. Please, this is for you, and you will be participating. Rest assured on that, sirs. To go on to the next slide, it's basically this program. We are running a very structured program on the for the accelerator here. Basically, as it's been mentioned, I think Mr. Sandeep Kathuria has given a very, very good presentation on the monetization and business growth opportunities for the PDOAs in India, how it is to be done. What it requires is structured growth for anyone, any startup, any innovation that is done. It cannot just be, started. Yes, the PDO himself might just start up one day and say, look, I've bought this access point and I want to start up. But for a PDOA, it requires a certain amount of structuring to get into the market. So what we are offering with this program is to connect you with the industry stalwarts, and I'll be coming to that again. In case you have some innovative ideas and you need support on that, definitely we could help on that. And we are providing mentoring programs where people who were experts in the field, who spent many years, they would be guiding you on this. And eventually we would be taking the best startups and innovators in this field and running them through a phase of the program, after which we will shortlist the best out of them, and there would be awards applicable also for the best in this Accelerator program. So please do register. We have a mentorship program, and in this mentorship programs, we have people from the industry, we have people from forums and foundations who are there, who have huge amount of experience over here. We have Mr. Mashelkar from GenNext. We have Ms. Kannan from Cisco, for example. And of course, we have Mr. Mittal from Meta, who's there. Mr. Ramachandran, our very own president, and one of the first people who's been sort of behind the push for PM Wani, as it has been mentioned earlier, is there. We have Mr. Osama Manzar of the Digital Empowerment Foundation, and Ms. Rekha Jain, who's a senior visiting professor at ICRIER and has been with IIMA for many years. And of course, with our very own Mr. Dr. S.N. Gupta of Bluetown. He's already given his contact details in the chat. Very happy to we will be providing support in any and every way to people who are registering with this Accelerator program. And these are some of the companies, of course, who would be ready to set up business partnerships. For example, PM Wani is something which is new in the field. Nokia has already spoken. It was a very good presentation. They have done work with startups in the past who worked in the 4G domain, in other domains which are, technologies which are already there. And now they'll be looking forward to working with people who are developing technologies for PM Wani. Meta is already doing a lot of work with startups in the public Wi-Fi space, and they're looking forward to people, to startups coming into the Accelerator program and working with them also. We have a whole host of incubator partners. Headstart basically does a lot of work with incubators across the length and breadth of the country, and they have many, many incubators as their partners, and they have very kindly brought forward one, and all the incubators have agreed to join on to this program to support the Accelerator program. They will be extending their facilities for lab testing, for equipment innovation. Anybody who comes up with an innovative idea could use, and these incubators are across all parts of the country. So please get in touch. We could put you in touch with the incubators and you could use their facilities in this Accelerator program. And likewise, I don't think I need to go into this slide too much. You've already had the investors speaking to you. These are some of the names who are there, plus you've heard some of the investors talking over here. I shall go on. This is the program roadmap. So in the program roadmap, basically, we are looking, this was launched on the 22nd of January this year, and we're running these learning series, but we have a number of regional programs also which are planned. And we would be doing these along with the Department of Telecommunications. We would definitely, as I said, I reiterate once again, now is the time when we will be involving all the PDOAs. There are a number of them who've been very active already. They've been talking to us. Rest assured, the issues that have been raised, questions that have been asked in the past programs that have taken place, we have forwarded these points to the Department of Telecommunications for their feedback also. We would be forwarding the issues and questions raised today also to them. and we will be working with them to come out with solutions. And they are already working on a number of these points to come out with solutions. And I'm sure when they come on, and speak to you, Mr. S.K. Singhal has already addressed a session before and given a lot of very solid points earlier. We are definitely, this is PM Vani is going to be made a success, rest assured, and we will be working very strongly with everybody. So we have an application deadline for the registrations in this program as of 27th March. We have extended it from 15th of March so that people who are yet to register, please do join on to this Accelerator program. Show your full capability, give us all your issues. We will try and sort them out for you along with the mentors, the partners, DOT, everything. We will provide as much support as we can to you. And then mid-July, we will have a award-based ceremony where the best 3 or 4 participants would be recognized. So with that, please, PM Vani is going to be a success, I reiterate. And the URL for is provided at the bottom. Please take the application form online, fill it up, and register yourself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arun sir, for that. That was a very sort of insightful introduction about the program. And for anybody who has not yet applied to it, you still have until tomorrow. So the deadline ends tomorrow, and the link is there in the chat, as well as the link that was mentioned in the presentation that Arun sir was just running by. If in case you missed that, the link is also there on the chat. So please feel free to sort of scroll up a little and you'll be able to find the link. Cool. So with that, we'll probably move into our third session and perhaps the final session for today, where it's basically a workshop on fundraising for startups in the internet connectivity. So while we did hear various perspectives of 3 or rather 4 investors, including myself, in the previous panel discussion, we also were thinking that, okay, it's good to have different perspectives, right? So which is why we decided that, hey, we should have somebody from the startup ecosystem, a founder himself, sort of come over and talk to us about their journey, especially with respect to fundraising in this particular domain. So with that, we have Mr. Satyam Darmora from I2E1, which is again a very interesting scale startup in the space, who's going to be conducting an in-depth workshop for us on fundraising. To give a quick background about Satyam as well, again, very, very stellar sort of track record. He is an IIT Delhi and IIM Bangalore graduate with a terrific record in working with large corporations and scaling up new businesses. At the young age of 32, he was one of the youngest directors at Michael and Susan Dell Foundation, an organization for which I have massive respect, being in the impact investing ecosystem myself. He also served as a constituent member of consultative group against poverty, which is a World Bank entity. In the year 2014, he was also appointed on the project approval committee of the NSDC, National Skill Development Corporation, again a very sort of prestigious government organization, which is a nodal agency for skill development in India. So thank you so much, Satyam, for being part of this and joining us and sort of agreeing to take our founders and prospective founders through your journey. I'll quickly sort of cover like a broad agenda of what Satyam will be covering. Of course, Satyam, feel free to sort of navigate around it or even additional stuff that you might want to cover, but just to give the audience an idea. So I2E1 is a front runner in the internet connectivity space, and they were funded by Omidyar Network, which is again another prominent investor. Mr. Darmora will be covering the primary aspects of. I seem to have an echo. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Requesting the participants to go on mute in case they aren't. So the things that we'll be covering majorly will be just showcasing the big picture, sort of the way that you communicate your vision and the way that you think about your vision as a startup, effective fundraising strategies that can help founders raise funds, Of course, a bulk of it is inherent ability to raise funds, but of course, if you are able to deploy certain specific strategies, you can be a little more successful at it. Understanding the investor mindset, right, from a founder perspective. Of course, we did hear from investors, but let's hear from a founder perspective. How do they sort of look at investor mindset, especially in this particular domain? And finally, certain tips or certain, let's say, cheat codes when it comes to pitching to investors that founders should keep in mind. So with that, I'll hand over to Mr. Satyam.
Thanks, Pranay. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks BIF for conducting this workshop. It has been very interesting to hear multiple investors talk about their excitement for the connectivity space. Around 5-6 years back, when we started, a typical question which was asked to us would be, don't you think it is going to be very difficult because there are large players and you are trying to do something which is sitting at the intersection of tech, infra, operations, and analytics? And the second question which would be asked would be, what is the defensibility of what you are doing? Now, fortunately for us, the answers to these questions are pretty simple. The first question, the answer is yes. There is no other option. And the second question is being answered by the first question itself. Because the work which has to be done is at the intersection of multiple things, it creates a different kind of defensibility. I understand that in this conversation, there might also be a lot of PDOAs who are joining it. So I'm going to talk about two things primarily today. One is, some of the questions that at least we have heard small organizations reaching out to us asking that why am I not getting funded in this space? And the second is, what should keep us interested in and excited about why will we get funded? Are there enough opportunities and would VCs back us? So starting from, let's start from the first part of it. Typical question is, we are a profitable business and I run a small network in a particular area, but how do I get funded? In the previous session also, some investors talked about it. Investors invest for the purpose of exit. They're looking for exit-worthy businesses and not necessarily profitable businesses. If you are looking for a kind of money which can help you grow a profitable business, then probably debt is a better version. Equity money only comes in when you have the possibility of an exponential scale. And therefore, it is very, very important to know what kind of money fits into the requirement of the kind of business that we are. So that's the first thing. Second is, a lot of businesses in this internet connectivity space, when we talk about, are primarily B2G businesses. Right? B2G businesses means they are relying a lot on government schemes, or you are kind of a system integrated to a larger organization. In our experience, it might be difficult for you to raise equity money if your model is fundamentally being built on a B2G business. It has to have an element of a B2B or a B2C business. Then only it goes onto that path of that e to the power x kind of curve, which can which can do that, right? That's the second part of it. Whether you are a B2B business or or has your business primarily been like a B2G. From the investing perspective, it is very important for people to know what can you become rather than what have you done so far. What have you done so far is probably important in putting your credentials out there, but the investment would only happen for the purpose of what you can be. Your past is just more of a checklist, and that doesn't guarantee you investments. And that's also true because the world is changing pretty fast. You have to have a futuristic model, a model which is built for the future, and that is what investors are going after. And that is where a lot of these questions, at least when we have heard from some of the fellow organizations, small PDOAs, on how do I get funding and why do investors not talk to me? Our experience comes from primarily these things, because investors would only invest for the purpose of exit. If they can see huge exit coming and you being able to give that kind of returns. Otherwise, there are other kind of funding mechanisms which are available. These can be coming from government budgets. These can be by serving other kind of companies. These can also be coming from a lot of organizations who are interested in the space of connectivity, because connectivity, while is a business in itself, it has huge impact on society. And therefore, you would find a lot of organizations also making grants in this space. So one has to understand where one fits in, when it comes to the funding that we want and the kind of funding that one is trying to look at. The second important part, which is very important for all of us to realize, is that internet connectivity has been dominated by conventional businesses. These are like large telecoms. We know, like, one of the richest companies in this country would, the first name that would come to our mind would be a telecom company. Or the richest people in this country wanted to be in telecom space, and they now happen to be in the telecom space. Now, how do you build an exitable business in a space where the perception is that there are huge, large companies out there? Now, you can look at that as an opportunity or a challenge. If we try to become a similar species than what already exists, the chances of you getting funding is very less, because people would bet on to those who have already been doing it, who've got deep connects, who already have an infrastructure, who already have a lot of things already laid out for them, right? So what is that a startup can do, right? A startup has to be more innovative and more disruptive, and in other sense, you then try to become a different species, an unknown species that organizations have never thought about. Just imagine it like this, that in pre-2000 era, right? And if you look at entire, let's say, FMCG goods, most of them would be sold through traditional models like Walmart. Infra-based pipe businesses, where you set up the entire value chain and products are being sold over it. Right? This is how large telecom conventionally has been. These are large infra companies, balance sheets primarily driven by a high amount of debt, with obviously a lot of equity, but equity being primarily leveraged, and very traditional businesses. You can almost think of them as FMCG businesses. Think of them like Hindustan Levers of the world. Now, if you want to be in that space and realize that there is huge need for the end user which is out there, how do you compete with likes of Walmart? How do you compete with likes of Levers? How do you compete with likes of P&G or someone else? And that's where, if you look at the new age businesses, most of the startup disruption has happened on the demand side. You create a platform in the middle, which then makes it super easy for the demand side to get whatever they're looking for. And that's where Amazons of the world have come in over time. Today, Amazon would be much more valuable than Walmart. And 20 years back, no one would have ever imagined that, there can be a company which can be more valuable or can have more influence on the FMCG market, or for that matter, a lot of other goods, in the consumer space. So similarly, not being one of the species, which is, the large telecom companies who have got the financial power, who have got huge infrastructure, is, one can look at it as a huge challenge, right? Because the first question that you would be asked from any VC is, why should we give you money when there is already a Jio and Airtel, a Vodafone, or for the matter, any other company? And these are huge organizations, So if we try to be one of them and try to do a model which is similar to them, probably it's not gonna happen, right? So these are primarily, the areas which I thought I will talk about. A few questions that we have heard from a lot of fellow colleagues in terms of why do we not get funded. Let's come to the other part of it. Can we get funded in the connectivity space? And that's very interesting, and that's what keeps at least us very excited about it. Interestingly, while there might be a perception about that there is not much funding happening in the connectivity space, we have been fortunate. That we've got not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 VC funds, right? These are all like SEBI registered funds who have invested in us or are in the process of investing in us, right? So there is a lot of excitement, and that excitement is coming from the fact that connectivity is a huge problem. If you look at India as a market, we have 25 crore households. Only 2 to 2.5 crore households have got broadband internet. We're sitting at around 7 to 8% penetration of home broadband in India. China sits at 93%. Russia and Brazil are sitting at 60%, US is sitting at 75% plus. This is the time when the world is changing and everybody wants to consume data and a lot of data, right? People are talking about metaverse. So you need high amount of speeds and you cannot live your life with 1 GB and 1.5 GB kind of limits on a daily basis. You need data for your smart TVs from OTT platforms like Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hotstar, and whatnot. Right? If you want to consume them, you require internet. India as a country, if you look at the next 100 million households in the country, right, which is the next 10 crore households, average family of 5, average mobile phones in that family would be probably 1.5 to 2. Each person taking a 320 rupees recharge, which means you get on a daily basis an internet limit of 1 GB or 1.5 GB, finally means that for a family of 5, you've got total 3 GB of internet, which means each person has got at an average 500 to 600 MB of internet. Of all those who have connected onto this call, by the end of this call, since you started, you would have consumed more than that. So when COVID happens and when online classes are happening, a child cannot have 5 hours of online classes if this is how the data distribution is happening in the country, which means that there would be business models which would make sure that enough and unlimited internet is available to masses. And like I said, specifically one of the medium, which is home broadband, because 80% of internet consumption happens when you're sitting inside a home. It does not happen while you're on the go. You're watching videos when you're sitting, you're watching movies when you are relaxing, not while you're driving or not while you're on a scooter or anywhere else. Severely under-penetrated market, and therefore huge opportunities for investors or for startups who are looking to make tremendous amount of value. Right? Even if, like I said, 25 crore homes, 15 crore homes in India have got cable TV. Right? Even if somebody can take broadband internet from 2.5 crores to 15 crore homes, you're talking about 7-time increase in the in the total market. In these 15 crore homes, even if you are able to capture 10 crore homes at an ARPU of even 5,000 rupees, right? Then we're talking about 10 crore into 5,000 rupees annually, which is going to be around 50,000 crore rupees of revenues. And that's the huge opportunity which is still untapped over there. Connectivity is a huge problem. People are willing to bet on it. And of course, it would happen through slightly innovative models. It's very difficult to bet on, into a traditional business model to believe that they would start to beat how the conventional model have been. So there would be in some corners some startup which is working interestingly, and if you look at globally, that has already started to happen. Right? I don't know how many of you have been following a company called Helium. Anderson Horowitz, which is one of the most respected VC firms across the world, has purchased around, I think, $120 million worth of Helium currencies. Right? So Helium has tokenized the entire layer. They're now giving Bitcoin's equivalent on top of their network, and seems to be one of the most exciting business model which people are talking about. Right? Not only Helium, now you'll find I met a very interesting startup which is in a stealth mode, and they are making a model on top of Helium. So not only Helium, but models which are sitting on top of Helium have come. Now, why that becomes interesting is we are in a very interesting times when something like PM Money has been announced. Again and again, we've tried to evangelize this. PM Money is not a government project. It is an enabling architecture, but it allows for amazing amount of innovations. This is in the true sense UPI movement for internet. There would be interesting companies like, we had not heard of GPay, we had not heard of PhonePe, we had not heard of Paytm 15 years back, and today they might be one of the most valuable companies. If somebody looks at the basic architecture of PM Money, which fundamentally allows two things. One, sharing of internet has been allowed. So a shared economy has been opened. And second, moment you open up millions of sellers and there are millions of buyers, there is a need for a platform in the middle. It has opened up a platform approach. A new class of players have been added to internet services space called PDOs. This is unprecedented. Helium had to wait till cryptos came in to create the kind of model that they've created today. They've been in this space for quite some time. PM Wani allows a very, very legal way in creating similar kind of models which can be hugely disruptive. So this is the time. This market opportunity is huge. It cannot be a better time. You obviously need to have the right team and focus on execution. And therefore, if somebody asks me, I think this is the most exciting space to be. Every internet solution will be created on top of internet. You cannot have Hotstar becoming super big in this country till the time everybody has got home internet. You cannot have Netflix doing wonders in this country. You cannot have billions of dollars being invested in this country on the premise of a 1.3 billion population if 93% of these people do not have home broadband internet. And that's the opportunity, and that's what keeps us super excited. So I'll stop here and happy to take any questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Satyam. And I think it was a very powerful note to end on when you say, and that sort of drives the point home, right? That we hear everybody building for the next billion, the next half billion, and building, and India being such an important sector focus or geographical focus for most funds and things like that. But of course, the whole thing rests on the tenet that there should be enough internet connectivity, enough broadband to support that particular growth. So totally agree with your points, and thank you so much for that. So I have one question from Mr. Mukesh Sinha. So he says, so one of the who is he's one of the PDOAs, and he has raised a question on the key challenges for PDOAs in terms of cost of internet in rural areas and last mile connectivity. So can you elaborate a little on that, and also can you share some thoughts on ways one can overcome these challenges in terms of the cost and connectivity?
So see, there are two ways in which cost can be, brought down. One is the technological innovations, and second are the architectural innovations, right? When I say architectural innovations, if you unbundle the entire supply chain and focus only on one part of it while delivering a particular service, it helps the entire ecosystem to bring down its cost. Second, when I say are the technological innovations, if the cost of delivery using a particular method is A, if you bring in a more superior technology, which is more cost effective, it can definitely reduce the prices. In our scenario, we put our bet onto the first part, which is doing the architectural innovation, working with partners so that the entire cost of distribution is distributed amongst various players. And I, as an entity, do not have to pick up the entire cost of delivery. So we focus only and only on one part of that delivery and work with multiple partners so that this cost is distributed, and the returns that can be taken out can be maximized. Our experience has been mostly in the urban areas, so I might not have very specific pointers towards what kind of rural setting is being talked about in this case, but happy to have an offline discussion to share some of our thoughts in how we have been able to achieve it in the rural areas.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope that answered the question. So just one more question, post which we'll probably wrap up. So this last question, very relevant to let's say, or very specific to I2E1, right? So in general, like we were discussing even in the investor panel, the moat or the differentiator is one of the key aspects apart from founder and team, is also the moat that a startup carries, which sort of makes it investor attractive, right? And the differentiator that they carry. So how do you think startups in the internet connectivity space can differentiate themselves? And how did you, or more specifically from an I2E1 perspective, how did the team go about building that differentiating factor? And sort of, how did you identify what is it that differentiates us? How did you identify that this is what it is, and you communicate that to the, say, investors or even to the public in general?
Sure. So Pranay, in our case, what we realized was that most of the delivery models today to end customers are pipe models. These are companies who set up their own. I mean, just imagine, like, these are their own resources on which value add happens, and it is being sold to the customer. A platform play has been missing in the internet space. When I say platform play, it's like an Airbnb or an Uber, an intermediary in the middle which owns the demand side, and then make sure that the supply is becoming more and more efficient. Right. The moat and the disruptions in internet connectivity space, our bet will come from a platform play, Whether it is done by us, whether it's done by Helium or someone else, that's a matter of time, and who does it better kind of questions. This is consistent with, if you look at disruptions in any space, whether it is real estate, whether it is transportation, whether it is commerce itself, everywhere platforms have come in and have disrupted the entire space, because platforms fundamentally reduce the cost of delivery to the end user, increases quality, gives them more options, and specifically in cases where shared economy also opens up, it opens up a huge new market. Our bet is that the moat would be created over here, which would probably come from an early stage company, because for the large stage companies to change the color of their skin and their fundamental DNA is going to take a really, really long time. These are fundamentally two different DNAs. A Marriott can never become an OYO Rooms or an Airbnb. A New York taxi company can never become an Uber. And that's how, this is where at least we are betting on, and therefore thinking like a platform, capitalizing on the first mover advantage, grabbing demand side as fast as possible is going to be the key.
Interesting. Well, that's super interesting, and I hope the both prospective and existing founders do have some very interesting, important points rather to take away from this, and sort of shape their ventures going forward. Especially the differentiator aspect that you mentioned, right? Basically having the customer in mind, ensuring a building for scale and things like that. And that's super important. So I think with that, thank you so much, Satyam, for taking time out and sort of sharing these amazing insights with us. It was super interesting to hear you, and I'm sure that everybody else also enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Yeah, so Taha, over to you for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Pranay, for moderating such a wonderful session. I think this is the end to the learning series that we had organized under the Broadband India Forum Connectivity Accelerator, and this forum itself, was a platform for us to help discuss some of the key aspects that are required to really boost internet connectivity. I think all the speakers that we have had in today's session and all the previous session as well have talked about the importance of internet. I think we all understand the importance of internet, and the entire ecosystem being built, the solutions being built. Right now, we can literally say that majority of the solutions are now in our hands, thanks to internet and thanks to the entire mobile and the connectivity that has been created over there. And being able to ensure that this access to internet is there to everyone is a great opportunity. Right? And we still are having challenges in terms of getting the last mile connectivity, getting rural connectivity, getting others in terms of high quality internet, affordable internet. Like Satyam also mentioned that the data requirement that we have per user has increased, right? And I think that's where along with the mobile connectivity, there is also a complementing Wi-Fi connectivity that is required to meet this quality and the bandwidth requirement for this new age and time itself. So I think this was a wonderful session for all of us to understand a lot about investment as well. I would like to thank our first session panelist, Mr. Suri from Ideaspring Capital, Anirudh from Inflection Point Ventures, and Mr. Vatsal from PC. I think investors do play a very key role in helping boost this innovation and this solution. And their continued support in this ecosystem and the insights that they shared with the larger audience was really useful for them to also understand that, hey, when they look at pitching to investors, what does that look like? We also had a great discussion with Mr. Satyam, again talking both about PDOAs and the business mindset and the investment mindset. And one thing that really took around was the entire innovation that is required is both from a perspective of technology and architecture, right? And at this point in time and in this era, we do see a very close collaboration between various entities providing different solutions, but partnering together to complete the entire solution line. Because I think that's the end goal, right? The value in this entire ecosystem is huge. The requirement if internet is there, the just the impact on GDP itself is so huge that being able to provide that through any support can be really helpful. And I think that's where the partnership model that we are able to build in to get different people playing their role and building the entire ecosystem of solutions can help us get there. So thank you, Satyam, for sharing some of these beautiful insights on your session, both from a business and investment perspective. That I think was really useful for PDOAs who have joined this session, as well as a lot of new ventures and technology solutionists who are now looking at this from a very different perspective. Would like to also thank Mr. Rajat, Mr. Sandeep, and Mr. Arun from the Broadband India Forum team. I think their entire discussions around both understanding PM Vani and the potential that PM Vani has in the respect to grow the internet connectivity, liberalize the entire landscape of providing internet to users and also creating micro entrepreneurs through the entire process is a great initiative that will be successful, and this boost can really help ensure that more such technologies and architecture solutions are coming together to provide that part out. And also would like to thank Arun for talking about the entire BIF Connectivity Accelerator program. And the entire purpose of the program is to make sure that all the ventures that we are having in the program and the community as a whole, we are able to bring in all of these solutions together, right? And all the partners that we have talked about are a few of the partners along with a lot more that we have, who are just providing that platform to every single PTOA, to every single solution providers in this space to ensure that their journey, they get the right support to grow. And also, I would love to like to thank all the other speakers who have joined in the previous earnings series as well. I think their inputs and their knowledge that they have shared over here has been a great learning and a platform for us as a whole, as a community as a whole, to understand more about the internet connectivity and also the challenges and the opportunities over here. We look forward for the Connectivity Accelerator program to continue providing that support. And we look forward to having every single member attendees who have joined this and the previous sessions, have learned and have also shared some very valuable insights, challenges, and also some of the innovative solutions they themselves are providing in this space. So thank you everyone for coming in, and we look forward to interacting with you more. This is one of the things that we are doing. We look forward to doing a lot more with you in this space. One last thing for everyone, please do visit our website, bifconnectivityaccelerator.headstart.in, for more details about the program. We are also closing the application tomorrow. So in case you are interested and you would like to take value from this program, do sign up. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you so much, Brian.
Thank you, Taha.